Hello, everyone, and hi, Julia. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Um, yeah, so let's dive right in. I think people want to know who's Julia Tulipan, and where do you come from originally? What path brought you to where you are right now? So let's dive into a little bit of the background, if that's okay.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to be here and happy to share a few insights from my side. My name is Julia Tulipan. I'm a biologist by training and a nutritional scientist. And I would say I'm a bit of a science nerd, so I love to dig in deep into the science and also bring the science to to lay people, and kind of I see myself as a translator of a kind. I live in Vienna, in
Mhm.
Austria, so it's the capital of Austria, and
And just to clarify, Austria is a country with no kangaroos, right? Just to
yeah.
make sure people know.
So yes, we don't have kangaroos. It's in the middle of Europe, in the heart of Europe.
Right.
We have Mozart and
Mhm.
snowy mountains, and yeah, but no kangaroos.
Right.
Exactly. And yeah, so I live in Austria and I work as a nutritional coach, so to speak. And what brought me on that path, as it is so often, it's a very personal journey. I think a lot of people who are passionate about nutrition and health most of them have a personal connection, a personal story. And mine started, I think, in puberty, maybe with 14, 15 years of age. And as it happens when the hormones set in, you start to gain weight in a normal way. I was
Mhm.
never overweight, but still the body changes, and I kind of tried, every diet out there, and I wasn't really satisfied with how I looked, because there's also a specific kind of type that is presented to you by the media, by the magazines, how you should look. And if you don't really um, are exactly the way the magazines make you think you should look, then you think there's something wrong with you
Mhm.
and you have to do something about it.
Right.
So the whole nutrition idea, or thinking about nutrition, kind of started really early on. And then I followed the classical diets with calorie counting and lots of exercise, and I really kept my weight really low.
Mhm.
And then I think it was about in my mid 20s or so, I noticed something is off. I started gaining weight. I was really kind of depressed. I had chronic back pain. I had knee pain, and uh, it took me about another 8 years or so to realize that that this has something to do with my way of eating.
Mhm.
So, and there was a point when I was only eating around 1,000 calories, and I was training 5 times a week,
Wow.
and I gained weight.
How does okay?
And that was for me
Right.
the point where I started to
Mhm.
question the common belief that it's
Right.
all about calories in and calories out, because it
Mm.
didn't make sense for me. So I started digging into the science, and since I'm a biologist, I really knew how to read scientific papers, and I knew how the body or cells function and cells work. And I originally come from I have a training in behavioral biology,
Mhm.
and I worked with animals, so with livestock animals. And in animal husbandry, it's all about how can I keep the animals healthy and that they reproduce and they gain the right amount of fat and the right amount of muscle. And it's never about calories in animal nutrition. It's always about macros. So that helped me to understand that so we are also animals, and if it works for pigs or for cows, the same has to work for human beings as well. So that helped me to understand the whole principle of how macronutrients influence our body's reaction to these macronutrients and how it might influence if I store something as fat or if I use it otherwise. So that helped me a lot. And then from there on, I discovered Gary Taubes and different and other very influential people who had the same approach to nutrition as to look through through an evolutionary kind of glasses. And
Right.
so this was the right way for me to start with it. And from there on, I started to eat in a different way, and my health improved.
Wonderful. Let me just recap. There was a lot there to unpack. Actually, really interesting. So, you started out, probably eating what people in Austria eat, and probably more on the healthy end of things. Sounds like it, or because you were very conscious, health conscious, and followed. I'm assuming the kind of the dietary advice of the day. Lots of grains and this and that. And you are very conscious, of course, of weight and maintaining a low weight, and you are cutting down calories to something like 1,000 calories a day, even though you're very active athletically, which is amazing. And it still didn't work. All right. But then the interesting angle I just heard is because you have a biologist science background, especially with livestock, you discovered, that didn't really cross my mind, that the people in the livestock industry know a thing or two about how to feed their animals, to make them either fat very quickly or to make them lean, if they want to. So you're kind of saying that the nutrition science field for livestock is sort of more advanced than for humans. That's actually really an
Definitely,
interesting
yeah,
angle. I
yeah,
hadn't heard
absolutely.
that before. Okay. Wow, so that's amazing. And how did you get into biology? So it sounds like you studied biology in college. Is that right?
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, I
Right.
studied biology, so it's a master's degree in Austria,
Mhm.
and I specialized in behavioral biology and in I made my master's in at the Veterinary University of Vienna
Mhm.
in a department for animal husbandry and animal welfare.
Mhm.
So there was a lot about we focused a lot on um, how the welfare. What does an animal need to thrive and prosper? And part of that is uh, what does an animal need from a food perspective
Mhm.
as well, so to also to really stay healthy. And I worked also with wildlife, wild animals in the zoo. So this, and in the zoo it's even more important to keep animals really healthy because usually we want them to reproduce. So if there is an endangered animal, we want them to be able to, I don't know, rewild them or anything.
Mhm.
So and in modern zoos, there it is really important that the enclosures are structured in a way that the animal, is feeling well and can express their natural behavior and natural food. So providing them with food that is at least really, really close to what they usually eat in the wild,
Right.
that's a main focus. And the idea of what would be an ideal human diet,
Right.
that idea, I think, is really, really essential and central to our discussion about um, what's the right food for humans. So we should have a look at hunter-gatherers and traditional societies. What do they eat, or don't what do they not include into the diet?
Right. I think that's actually a really important question. And, I'm coming sort of from the same angle, as a biology scientist. Everything, of course, relates to evolution eventually, right? So all the mechanisms we have, all the physiology, right? So evolution has already made sure this is all a well-tuned machine, no matter what animal we are. And you're absolutely right. Of course, humans are animals. And a lion eats something completely different from a zebra, right? And if you swap that out and you feed a lion zebra food and the zebra the lion food, they're not going to live very long. Um, and the same question has been asked by lots of scientists in the human space as well. And for me, the literature is actually a little strange. In human nutrition, people seem to have like very, very strong opinions. Somebody has dedicated their life to researching like this particular tribe, and that's such an area, and they're convinced that this is the human food, right? And then the next person comes along and says, "Oh, no, I've studied that tribe in this jungle. They eat something completely different, so this must be the correct food." And then the next one has studied the Eskimos and so on. And people go on after their throats, and everybody thinks they're right. And so who's right at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there is we need to understand that humans are not specialists, no food specialists. So we are kind of opportunists. So like the koala, it's a really specialized only to eat eucalyptus. So that makes it really difficult for the koala to conquer the world.
Right.
So and that's why humans can live on really diverse diets, and that's one of our kind of secrets why we were able to conquer the whole world and live in all the different climate zones. But even though the diets are really diverse, depending on in which climate zone we live, there are common denominators. So if we look at a whole lot of hunter-gatherer societies, we do see similarities. And there is a really good work by Lauren Cordain, and they looked at 229 hunter-gatherer societies, and they just analyzed what kind of food they eat and how the macronutrient distribution is, and how much plant-based or how much animal-based food they incorporate in their diets. And what we do see is that there are no vegan hunter-gatherers societies. So even though there are some with a very large portion of plant-based or plant foods in their diet, there are no vegan hunter-gatherers. So we can say that. And on the other side of the spectrum, there are hunter-gatherer societies like the Inuit, for example, who almost eat an exclusive animal-based diet with very, very little plant substances in their food or in their nutrition. So we have those extremes, but if we look so the middle ground is that most of the hunter-gatherer societies they analyzed have about 2/3 of their calories coming from animal foods and 1/3 coming from plant foods.
Right.
And very little have some kind of grains, and if they have grains, it's always fermented and really and some it's somehow processed in any way, like fermentation.
Right.
So and if they have plants, it's mostly starchy tubers or something like that. So I think we can at least conclude that there is that we do need plants and animal foods, and there is probably it's 2/3 to 1/3
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I totally agree. We have to look at these pre-agricultural types of ways of eating, because something happened in human evolution, if you will, like 10,000 years or so ago, when suddenly agriculture was invented and people were able to figure out, oh hey, I can plant this thing and it grows and I can eat more and I can feed the whole town with it. So that was a pretty dramatic invention that however happened so recently that it had very little impact on our genetic evolution, right? So our genes didn't evolve just in the last few thousand years, which is like extremely recent on the slice on evolutionary time. Most of our genes evolved, millions of years ago, and depending on where you count. And usually, when I give a research talk about our research, that's kind of one of my starting slides to put things into perspective, because today's doctors, they're thinking, oh yeah, yes, people have eaten grains and bread for thousands of years, so it must be fine, right? But they don't think a little bit longer term where evolution actually happened. So I think that's a
Yeah.
really good point you also
Yeah.
bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, in an evolutionary context, 10,000 years is nothing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that's interesting. So you're coming really from, thinking wise from the biology point of view, which is, I think, really very valid and very important. So you studied biology, and getting back to Julia Tulipan, who you are, you had your own experiences with diet and nutrition. You figured out sort of over time what works and what doesn't work for yourself, and then at some point, it sounds like you decided to make this your job, essentially, to help others find the path. So how did that transition work?
Yeah, so it was so I would say 10 plus years ago or so, I really made it my full-time profession to work as a nutritional coach, I would say. And it actually comes from a place where I really love to teach. And I saw, so I had my own struggles, and it took me so long to figure it out. And there are so many people out there who have the same struggles as I am, and I really wanted to help them. That's really my yeah, my motivation. I wanted to help, and I really wanted to show that it's not their fault, because the most clients who come, yeah, the most clients I work with are those who have tried everything. So they're the same like me. I have tried everything and I failed. And for most of the part, I thought it's my fault. I'm doing something wrong because it has to work. It stands it's written in every book. Yeah, it has to work. And if it's not working, it's my fault. And so, and then I realized it's not my fault, because the no, give me a second. So the recommendations are wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
and that's, and I saw that, and I wanted to help all those other peoples out there who struggle, who count calories, who really starve themselves, who suffer, and nothing changes, and they are really kind of giving up. They're just giving up because they think they are not strong enough, they are not good enough, they are not, I don't know, well, I don't know, worthy, I don't know. But that's the words those clients say to me.
Right.
They say, I think something is wrong with me, and what did I wrong? What mistakes did I make? And
Right.
when I tell them that it's not their fault, that it's set up for failure if I follow the traditional diet recommendations, then it's a kind of relief for them. And then we start from this evolutionary standpoint. So we start with nutrient-rich, nutrient-dense foods. We focus on proteins. So everyone thinks about carbs and fats and so on, but actually it's really, really the proteins that are missing in most diets. And there's also a really interesting example from livestock nutrition. And we know, for example, that pigs, there's a really nice experiment with pigs, with piglets, and they can choose from different food sources, and those different food sources have different amino acid profiles, and they really try to mix and choose to get the best amino acid profile for them. And if you remove the one food choice that has the best nutritional amino acid profile, they try to compensate by eating more from the other sources. So you see, if there is amino acid deficit, we are trying to eat more to compensate and to get in those amino acids. And if I understand that we have intrinsic mechanisms, intrinsic kind of regulators who kind of know what is missing and driving us to eat, then I understand why I am always hungry, even if I'm overweight, even if I eat the whole time, because I don't give my body what it needs. The moment I fill up those protein stores, those amino acid deficits, the hunger goes away, the cravings go away, and then it's no problem to control my eating habits.
Right.
So that's kind of I come from a different angle.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, excellent. So in principle, our bodies could self-regulate if we had the right choices of what we eat and when we eat. But usually we don't have those choices because we have a supermarket to go to, and that whatever is on the shelf is on the shelf, and those kind of foods are yummy and all, and they're meant to look appealing to us, and there's tons of nice marketing selling it to us, but it may not be the right choices.
Yeah, but they are also marketed it as healthy, and
Right.
that's the problem.
Right.
And when I start to understand what we are made for, what foods do with us, which signals, with hormonal signals, different foods,
Right.
make in our body, then it's easy for me to make the right choices.
Good, excellent. All right. So now, so let's see. So you're not, of course, not a medical doctor. So you didn't go to medical school. You found your path, after you got your master's in biology, behavioral biology. I'm assuming there is some kind of a licensing type of thing in Austria where you have to, become maybe like the equivalent to a dietitian here in the US. And I was wondering if you could maybe clarify that for everyone. I'm always completely confused about the different titles in Germany and in Austria and in Switzerland, and how that all differs from each other, and how this relates to what people call a registered dietitian in the US. Maybe could you enlighten me? That would be good.
Yeah, it's really, really diverse, I would say.
Right.
And of course, since Europe, it's so many different countries. Every country has its own regulations. And so in Austria and Germany and in Switzerland, it's that you have registered dietitians like you have in the US,
Mhm.
and they are allowed to work with patients one-on-one.
Mhm.
They are allowed to work with sick people, so with people who are diagnosed with, let's say, diabetes or
Mhm.
autoimmune disease or something, and they are allowed to counsel them specifically on their needs in regards to the sickness.
Mhm. And what is
And
it
that's a
called?
really
Right.
important differentiator
Right.
between sick and kind of healthy
Right.
people. Of
Right. Okay.
Although, who is healthy,
Mhm.
that's another discussion. But so that's the official regulation,
Mhm.
or that's the official part.
And what's the
And then
German?
there is
Sorry, Julia, can I just ask, what's the German word for the kind of the equivalent to a registered dietitian? What is it called?
Diätologe.
Dietologe. Okay. And it's the
Yeah,
same name in Germany and in
yeah,
Austria. And okay.
Diätologe.
Diet.
And in Germany they call it a diet assistant.
Okay.
You would translate it to yeah,
Di
diet assistant,
diet.
but it's the same as a registered dietitian.
Okay.
And in Austria, we do have a kind of a stricter regulation in regards to who is allowed to consult someone in a one-on-one kind of consultation,
Mhm.
and it's only registered dietitians are allowed to do that.
Mhm.
Doctors are allowed to do that, and now the third part, that it's where I
Mhm.
or where I fall in. It's nutritional scientists
Mhm.
with a special kind of allowance,
Hmm.
or a special kind of
Okay.
certificate.
Okay. And what's that called in German then? Oh, that
It's
you
really
can.
it's this is specific to Austria,
Oh, I
so
see.
we
Okay.
are
Right.
bureaucracy
Right.
masters. So it's eine I really have to think about how it's called, besondere Befähigung.
Okay. So is this
Yeah.
Ernährungsberater or something like that? Does it sound like that or different?
Um, it's actually it's a little bit more complicated than
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
it's kind of Ernährungsberatung, so nutritional counseling, but
Mhm.
this is only so it's kind of only one-on-one coaching
Mhm.
is regulated through um, or is only allowed for dietitians, doctors, and nutritional scientists who seek for this special certificate.
Right.
You
Okay.
have to apply for it.
Hmm. I see. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically,
Uh,
in your case, you have your clearly the science education, and then on top of that, you got some kind of a certification, and that gives you the permission to work with
yes.
clients one on one. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So I have the master's in biology, and I made a master of science in clinical nutrition.
Mm.
This is a second uh, education.
Right.
So a postgraduate education pathway. I went, and with that I'm allowed to do one-on-one consultations.
Okay. It's always complicated
Yeah.
in Europe, and I'm sure every
Yeah,
single
it's
country,
always
has its own names and regulations and paths. But I
yeah.
think, what's important, of course, is that someone really knows what they're doing, what they're talking about, and has the right answers to help people, which that might be a little tricky sometimes also for clients to figure out, which dietitian can I trust? So I think even, just looking at that stamp of approval itself, I think is maybe not necessarily enough, but you actually also want to talk to the person and ask some probing questions and figure out, do they actually know what they're talking about here? So,
Yeah, definitely,
right.
definitely. Since most registered dietitians are going through the the usual educational process, and you usually don't learn a lot about low carb or ketogenic diets or evolutionary aspects. It's just, we have the same pyramid,
Mhm.
the nutrition
Right.
pyramid as in the US. It's just in a different design, but it's exactly the same.
Mhm.
So the principles are the same, and that's what everyone is learning. So
Right.
having these approvals or these signs of approvals are definitely no guarantee that you will get yeah someone with who thinks a little bit out of the box or
Mhm.
outside of the classic nutritional
Right.
regulations or advices. So um, and but that's how it is, and sometimes maybe it's a good thing for because on the other hand you have a lot of you know online courses and a lot of academies where you can do your nutrition coach um, with some kind of certificate, but it's of course no university or no real no real studies,
Mhm.
you know, and that's why it's really difficult to differentiate and to know who is really well educated and has also the scientific or then um, the scientific background or the medical background.
Right.
Yeah, so everyone can do those courses, and they are allowed to call themselves Ernährungsberater, so
Mhm.
nutrition coach.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's really tricky, and a lot of them are really good,
Mhm.
but actually those people, if you have just such an online course, or it doesn't have to be online, even if it's in person, and if you know dietitian or nutritional scientist, then you are actually not allowed to do one-on-one consultations.
Mhm.
You're allowed to, you can do group courses and seminars and everything, but actually no one-on-one consultations. And that is a little bit of a gray area at the moment where
Mhm.
everyone tries to move around.
Right, right, right. Okay, very interesting. Yeah. So as a, almost a consumer, everybody is their own health advocate for their own body. I think it's important to shop around and hire someone, work with someone who really, knows the ins and outs, and that might be a little tricky to find. And yeah, um, but anyway, so let's talk about ketogenic metabolic therapy, which is I think the approach you're doing with your clients. And it came out of all your science background and knowledge, and I think looking at maybe successes from others as well. So how do you actually do this with your clients? So a client comes along, has different types of the typical symptoms and chronic ailments and diseases and so on. What do you do with them? Do you is it mostly one-on-one? Is this group? Do you do seminars? And how do you start people off on the right track?
Yeah, it's actually it's mostly one-on-one,
Mhm.
but I also do seminars, and we also have we do twice a year a keto retreat with we partner with a really nice spa hotel in Lower Austria, and so we try to make it really easy and yeah and approachable for people just to try it out, to meet others, and I might, or what I have to say is that I'm so the ketogenic diet or ketogenic metabolic therapies. are really powerful tools. And even though I really love keto and I'm doing it for me because it works for me the best, um, it's definitely not the only way or the right way for everyone or the necessary way for everyone.
Mhm.
So I really try to look into if I talk to someone the first time, I really look into their needs. So I look what are there really are there really diseases, or is there really anything deeper going on? Is there already some kind of autoimmune disease? Is there
Mhm.
in chronic inflammation? Is there um, diabetes? So then you might need to start really with a very low carb diet, and to get them as fast as possible into ketosis, because as you know, ketones are much more than energy. They are really signaling molecules which can really influence cells and cell pathways and cell communication on so many different levels that it might be really beneficial to get into ketosis just to benefit from ketones as the like a medication.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
but for on the other hand, there are a lot of people who are, yes, struggling with obesity maybe, or overweight, who are um, insulin resistant but not yet really diabetic, or so I really, for those it might not be necessary to go full keto right away.
Mhm.
So I really try to personalize the approach, and I really try to look where in the carb spectrum the person needs to be or might be a good starting point, because for most people, if they start with a low carb, appropriate protein, and higher fat diet, all those regulatory mechanisms start to kind of find their place
Mhm.
and modulate in a way they become more and more they become more and more metabolically flexible, and yeah, inflammation goes down and so on,
Mhm.
and then they transition into ketosis by themselves,
Right.
just because they don't need to eat every 3 hours, and
Mhm.
they find themselves really satiated and say maybe it's okay, I don't have a problem to fast for 12 or 16 hours, and then they might get into a mild
Mhm.
ketosis
Right.
on their own. So that's kind of the yeah, the
Right.
way
Excellent.
I use for my clients
Okay, so a very
approach.
individualized approach, depending on the needs and the different diseases that somebody might have. That's excellent. And so, which conditions do people come with to you? What are most of your clients? What are their complaints that they have? What are the diseases they might
Mm.
have?
So the my client think, let's say they come to me because they want to lose weight.
Mhm.
But actually, if we make our first analysis and we talk about their health overall, it's what I find is that most people actually have really low energy, so that kind of in a chronic fatigue, they really don't have any energy, um, and there's of course almost always already some kind of insulin resistance,
Mhm.
and that's why I try to target those things first, and then weight loss, mostly most of the time weight loss follows. So it's kind of a, you know, yeah, it's a kind of a natural progression. So we look into those issues first, and then the weight loss, which was first and the most important thing ever. It gets a little bit in the background because so many other things change, or are starting to change, like migraines, PMS, or fatigue, cognitive issues, and they start to recognize or realize all those things are changing, even though weight might not change yet, you know. And then so it's a slow process, and I try to um, yeah prepare my clients that it's not the fast and quick weight loss wonder diet that everyone might, or that they think it is, but that it might take a while, because it took 30 or 40 years to get there where they are now. So it won't take 30 years, but thank God, but it takes a year or 2 or 3 to get back to metabolic flexibility. But so most of my clients are women, have kind of the same history as I am, with a lot of most with a lot of diet. They tried a lot, they lost weight, they gained weight, a lot of cycling, a lot of yo-yoing, and they're really, really confused, and they really don't know what to do next. So they feel they have done everything they're supposed to do, and they were supposed to do, and nothing kind of worked. So
Right. Excellent. So that sounds very, very typical for, a very large chunk of the population. And then, so here's my next question. It's a large chunk of the population that has kind of very similar problems with their metabolic health. There is only one of you, and they're not, so ketogenic metabolic therapy is not exactly highly accepted amongst medical doctors. So I'm wondering, do you clash with the establishment sometimes? Do the doctors come to you and say, what are you doing with my patient? I don't want them to have ketones in their blood. It's going to kill them. Even doctors, strangely enough, confuse ketosis and ketoacidosis all day long. That drives me crazy. They should really know better. But it happens. So I'm wondering what your experience has been, with do people in the kind of established medical profession think you're crazy and you're killing people, or do they start to accept it a little bit more? Do they see results? What has been your experience?
that's a really difficult question, because so if I work with someone who is seriously ill, and where maybe even medications have to be adjusted and everything, then I try to get them to a doctor I can trust, and who is on the same page with me, and that really often works very well. Because and that's a good thing about the pandemic, laws about telemedicine changed in Austria and in Switzerland and in Germany, so it's much easier for me to even work with doctors who are not in Vienna, so or somewhere else. So that's why all my clients, they are from all over, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and even expats work with me. So it's really important to have, if it's needed, it's important to have someone who doesn't think you're killing the
Right.
person. And for the other group is that those people don't have illnesses which are really sensitive or very how to say it? Yeah, where I need to work with a physician, you know, and those people are really, I don't know, self-confident in that regard, that they know it did everything they did until now didn't work, so now I try something different.
Right.
Yeah. Um, I have there has I haven't never come into, I don't know, in a conflict with a physician or someone, because I have to say, also for my own safety, or for my own yeah, safety is maybe the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean.
Right.
If there is someone, let's say with type 1 diabetes, who wants to change their diet, but the physician is absolutely against it, I won't coach this person.
I see. Right.
Because there is a lot of, you have to know a lot and be really, really knowledgeable about insulin, about how you adjust it. If you're doing it on your own, it's possible, but few people are, and that knowledgeable, and so I wouldn't coach someone like that.
Interesting. Great. And so, here in the US, I would say, very, very slowly, ketogenic metabolic therapies are started to, become a little bit mainstream. I mean, it's still not really there yet, and most doctors have never even heard about it, but at least there is, some acceptance out there, and you can in fact, in the grocery stores here, keto products are all over now. In the last couple of years, you have shelves and shelves full of keto bread and keto bars and this and that. I'm wondering how that compares to old Europe. Do you see that trend coming in Austria, or is it still not quite there yet?
Uh, I want to say it's there, but no, it's. I think if you're really realistic, it's completely, yeah. It's there are some products here and there. It's getting more and more traction, but it's nowhere near where it's in the US. It's we are, yeah, far behind. Um, but I'm really confident that it will catch up, because especially in the past 10 years or so, so much has been published around the ketogenic diet and ketogenic metabolic therapies, and I think there just comes kind of the point of no return, where you can't just ignore it.
Right.
And my hope is that the moment when it's more established in the medical community and more accepted, and even accepted at least to think about it and to talk about it, and not be silenced, then there will be the demand from the consumer and from the patients for products as well, and for some change in consumer products available in the market, and then there will change the market. The market will change as well. But we do see a lot of interesting, reduced sugar and high protein products in the shelves, but not specifically marketed as keto.
Right.
That's a very niche market at the moment.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And that's exactly what when I travel to Germany, that's what I see as well. Great. So it's probably fair to say that you're still a rarity amongst practitioners in the German-speaking countries there. Where can people find you? So if somebody says, I want to work with Julia, where can they find you?
Okay, so the easiest way to find me is on my website, with this juliatulipan.com. So it's in German, but I do speak English. So if
Very
there
well.
are any questions, please feel free to write me an email. The email address is also on the website, but it's julia@juliatulipan.com. Really, really easy to remember. And I want to point out that I have a YouTube channel where I publish interviews with someone like you yourself, a lot of interesting experts besides me, and other input like recipes and just little knowledge bites on different topics. Yeah, so that's the main part. So my YouTube and podcast, and all the other channels like TikTok. I recently started on TikTok.
You have to dance on TikTok. All right.
No, I don't dance and I don't sing, so it's safe. It's safe to watch.
Perfect. Great. Yes, of course, I know your YouTube channel, which is awesome. And it's all, I'm pretty sure it's all in German, right? So people in the that know German can absolutely watch it. Great. So that's how people can find you, and we will put the links down there in the description so people can find it there. Excellent. I'm assuming you're on other social media, so we'll put everything down there. And if anyone is watching, maybe comment on this video and tell us what your experience has been. Have you been trying to find dietitians and you couldn't find anyone good? What's the situation in your country, in your area where you live? So I'm very curious to know what is out there in the world for everyone. Great. So last word goes to you, Julia. Is there anything else we've forgotten to cover? Something you want to say?
Famous last words. For everyone out there, if you're new to this kind of diet, or to this idea of eating a low carb diet, just try it. For most parts, it's not dangerous. You can really, you don't die of carbohydrate restriction, so you won't die, I promise. And yeah, just try it out. It's really easy, and you have nothing to lose. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity and the nice interview.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you, Julia. All right. See you around. Bye.